Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. Before we begin about Ceedee Lamb, Brandon Aiyuk not going to mandatory minicamp, we understand that this is not our typical schedule. Next week, we'll get back to the Monday and Wednesday shows. Just been a little chaotic for this week. But as why you turned up here, mandatory minicamp was happening this week, and Brandon Aiyuk, Ceedee Lamb have decided they are not going. Now, people will say, "Oh, this is very important. You should go." If you're looking for a new contract, with both Aiyuk and Lamb are looking for, you're not gonna go. It doesn't shock anybody. Plus, you only lose like about 93,000, and a place where you can get about. We just saw Justin Jefferson get 35,000 or 35 million. Excuse me. So it's not that much of a shock when Justin Jefferson's getting 35 million, and I'm like, I might lose $93,000 to just not show up so I get a new contract. It happens all the time. Now everyone's gonna say, well, that's a holdout. Why are they doing that? Well, I tell you, they're doing it because they need to. They desperately need to. You see, in the case of Brandon Aiyuk, he was not paid. He wasn't the first wide receiver paid for the 49ers. Juwan Jennings was. In the case of the Cowboys, they have not paid a wide receiver yet. So Ceedee Lamb is just there, he's waiting. And I hate these reports of people going and saying, oh, well, in the case of Ceedee Lamb, if Dak Prescott gets signed, Ceedee might stay. No shit. No shit. Are you kidding me? No shit. Of course he'd stay. Of course that would tip the scales in the Cowboys' favor if they pay Dak Prescott. Of course. Same thing with the 49ers. Would Aiyuk stay if Brock Purdy got paid? Probably. But Purdy's not in a position to get paid right now. He still has 1 year left that he has to play or has to have in order to be paid. That's how that works. But for them not showing up, like, okay, it is what it is. My concern is more of, are they in shape? Have they met with the quarterback? Do they have the trust in the quarterback that they can get this chemistry down on their off time? And that's what you're trusting in a veteran wide receiver, which both Aiyuk and Lamb are. So it's not a question of if they are going to get paid, more of a matter of when and how much. Like I said, Justin Jefferson got paid $35 million. Highest paid wide receiver, also one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks in the NFL. And there was people saying, well, maybe Ceedee Lamb just tries to get underneath that. Maybe get 32. Listen, I want this to be known. DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Ceedee Lamb have all the same agents. Have the same agent. They go with the same group. And every bit, it's either just a little above or just a little below. My point I'm trying to make is, if Ceedee Lamb, if you're looking for a Ceedee Lamb contract, it would either just be above AJ Brown or just be below AJ Brown. That's what it will be. That's kind of how that system works with them. I'm not anticipating he'd be making $36 million. I'm anticipating that he might make 34 or 33 because he'll be making a little bit more than AJ Brown will be making. That's the goal. Now, does that stay the goal? Maybe he does make more. We'll see. I think it's interesting to see right now, and this bleeds into T. Higgins and Jamar Chase as well, as they're looking for new contracts. Why is T. Higgins gonna take anything less than $21 million? Of course he's not. You tagged him for $21 million. So if unless he's doesn't understand financial situations, he's not gonna accept anything less than $21 million. He's going to only accept $21 million or more because he knows he's getting tagged for that much. Jamar Chase, not the same situation. He knows he's the number one wide receiver. He knows he's gonna make more. That's what he knows. It's just a matter of how much. How much more? In the case of Aiyuk and Lamb, they're not in the same boat. Lamb is a number one wide receiver, led the league in catches last year. Like, that's his thing. And if they would have played one more game, Ceedee probably would have had more receiving yards than Tyreek Hill. That's the way that works. Lamb would have had more. Just that's the way it works. It didn't happen that way. Aiyuk is not the number one wide receiver in San Francisco. Deebo Samuel is. But there's 5 players that are getting the ball on a normal basis on that team. Purdy, obviously, he's the quarterback. McCaffrey, Deebo, Kittle, Aiyuk. Those are the guys. And then you can go more if you want. You can go Kyle Juszczyk. You can go Juwan Jennings. You can go Elijah Mitchell if you want. But those guys are getting the ball. That's what they're getting. You're not the number one guy, but you're the number 2 guy. You just aren't going to really get as much. You're not going to get $30 million. Excuse me a sec. All right, sorry about that. But in the case of Aiyuk and Lamb, they're not in the same boat. So what does Aiyuk get? Is he going to get 20, 21? Because is he better than T. Higgins? I think so. They went farther than the Bengals did. They've been to 2 Super Bowls the last 5 years. I think he gets it. I think he gets over 20. But if we're looking at Lamb, that he's getting over 30. So that's the way you have to look at this. And you're looking at also deals that you might get more guaranteed money because that's how contracts are getting built now. It's more guarantees. So that's how that works. I question how that's all going to look in the next week or so. But before we move on, does anyone in like Lamb and Aiyuk still get done before actual training camp? I don't know that answer. The Cowboys seem to not be in a rush. The Niners have said that when they were talking about Aiyuk, the last known report was They weren't close on a deal. So, I think there's 2 of those. Let's see what happens. But I don't even think it might happen for both of these guys before training camp. Now, moving on, we have a couple things that we need to get into. So, there's 3 days typically of minicamp, of mandatory minicamp. You don't have to do all 3. You can do 2. As it's basically, what does the team accomplish? Or what do you want them to accomplish? Both the Cowboys and the Chiefs decided to cancel the day 3 practices, okay? Different reasons. The Cowboys said it was because they didn't they saw enough, they didn't need to really go into any more detail or didn't feel like they had to. So, they do this a lot, maybe it'll be like a kinda team bonding activity in the case of for the players of the Cowboys. But for the Chiefs, if this thing wants to work, they had to cancel practice for a far more dangerous reason, such as a medical emergency. Hang on a second. Let's just try and get this thing to cooperate. There we go. So, and medical emergencies do happen, but not into this kind of circumstance. As there was a player on the Chiefs, defensive lineman BJ Thompson, was brought to the hospital, had to be taken to the hospital after a cardiac arrest event, after suffering a seizure during a special teams meeting, according to multiple reports. The Chiefs medical staff responded to the situation, and Thompson is in a stable condition in the hospital. Continues on, says the Chiefs were going to hold the final offseason training activity this week after practicing both Tuesday and Wednesday. These situations are getting obviously treated a lot better and treated as a lot more like we're not doing anything after the Damar Hamlin situation of a couple years ago. It's shocking. You know, you see a lot of these players, like even I think it was last year, Mark Andrews had to go to the hospital because Mark Andrews, the tight end for the Baltimore Ravens, he has diabetes. And so he's kind of stuck a little bit for those things. But he had to go to the hospital because something happened and they sent him to the hospital and they didn't do it. Now the Chiefs, they've said that they are not starting mandatory minicamp until June 11 and June 13, which is next week. After that, their training camp, the man from going from mandatory training camp to actual training after going from mandatory minicamp to actual training camp, which is like a month later. So, scary events in the NFL, and you have to realize that some of these NFL stuff takes the football stuff takes a back seat to what has actually happened to a player and a player's health and stuff like that. In fact, this is the truth. As I want to see, I think it was Kelly, the center for the Colts, who is the vice president of the NFLPA, saying how he hates the fact of the 18 games, basically saying, I believe his name is Ryan Kelly. He said, basically, I don't like the 18 game schedule because these people who are only focused on ratings, I'm paraphrasing, only focused on ratings, not focused on the health of the players, don't realize how difficult it is to play 17 games. Now you want us to play 18. You don't want to do that. Now, will it be pushed through? Yes, because there was players that the players some of, if not most players went and said, we don't want a 17 game schedule. And that's where we are right now. So an 18-week schedule and 17 actual games. We don't want that. The players said it, and now all of a sudden that's what we're doing. So I don't know. It's coming. It's coming. It's like cold air on the horizon, but it's coming. It's a matter of when does it show up. That's when it matters. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are signing former Giants wide receiver to a one-year deal. If any one of you remember Sterling Shepard played for the Giants. He is reuniting with his former Oklahoma quarterback, Baker Mayfield. It says just before the club opens up mandatory minicamp next week, Sterling Shepard, the former Giant, is signing with the Buccaneers. The terms are undisclosed, disclosed, excuse me. It won't be immediately. Oh, yeah, undisclosed, they don't know. And it won't be in the immediate time frame. Shepard's had some success, played with a bunch of different quarterbacks in New York, most recently Daniel Jones, and he kind of had a downturn. I mean, he's torn his ACL. He's now 31 years old. But 2022, he tears his ACL, and then wasn't much of a factor in this past year. As he had a total of 22 targets, 10 catches, 57 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 fumble lost. I will also say this, he's had more recent injuries. He had a season-ending Achilles injury in Week 15 in 2021, the 2022 torn ACL. He was able to suit up for 15 games last year. Despite, I believe he had a fracture in one of his legs or something like that. He was also very limited in the offense, only 15% of snaps. So he now joins a team that has headlining wide receivers in Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and it also features Trey Palmer, the now second-year player, and a 2024 third-round pick. Jalen McMillan. So it's a crowded room, but I think there's a place for him to flourish in this offense that is going to throw the ball and is going to give him the opportunities. I just wonder what position would he be asked to do? Is he more going to be asked to be a slot guy or an outside threat? That's a question I think we need to have. Other than that, I think it's a good move by the Buccaneers to bring in Sterling Shepard. So that works. The Chiefs are set to re-sign Mecole Hardman again. I mean, there's no reason for them not to. He's a fast guy, and therefore he's the one guy who also has hands. Because you don't know about Xavier Worthy, and so this is just your safety net. He already knows the system. It's not like you just put him in, let's go. He knows the system. He knows Patrick. You don't have to worry about it. Next up is two more things we have to say. One of it is the Steelers are signing Cam Sutton. The former Steeler went to Detroit, got cut this year after warrants were out for his arrest, as he was on the run after a domestic violence incident. So there's that going on. And the final thing, we actually have two things, one sad and one not so sad. Let's do with the one not so sad. Eagles, Brandon Graham calls out last year's coaching staff, basically saying we did not have the right coaches in the right positions. No argument, because you are right. Brandon Graham entering his last year in the NFL, he's not been shy about that either. Of look, like, there's no reason for us to sugarcoat it. We tried to put people into positions, and they just said, "No, we're gonna do our thing," and it didn't fit what our players are comfortable with. Now, what does that look like in the next year? I don't know. Let's see what happens for the Philadelphia Eagles. There has not been a repeat champion in the NFC East since 2004, since the Eagles have done it. So let's see what happens. And finally, some sad news came across the wire earlier this week, I should say, as on Monday, it was announced that Larry Allen passed away, the former Cowboy, former 49er, passed away at the age of 52, suddenly, on vacation with his family in Mexico. And it was such a nice thing that the NFL did. Troy Aikman gave out a great Twitter message. Michael Irvin had his YouTube channel. He was talking about it. Emmitt Smith was crying about it. And, this is a guy for 11 years led the way for you if you're thinking about Emmitt Smith. That's hard. It's very hard. And when you talk about Larry Allen, there's two plays that have been going viral over the past week. It's the play of him running down the linebacker against the Saints. Troy Aikman throws an interception to a linebacker who's already at top speed before Larry even moves to run. And Larry basically Larry Allen looks like a sprinter and runs and tackles the linebacker before he gets to score. And as much as the interception, it was an interception, and normally the announcers would talk about the interception, they weren't talking about the interception. They were so amazed that Larry Allen was able to chase him down. A lineman who was over 300 pounds ran who ran down a linebacker. That was so interesting and so amazing to watch. It was almost something you just had to watch in the beginning because you wouldn't have realized it. And the second one was when Larry bench pressed 700 pounds. Like, that was something no one could believe. I wanna see if I can grab it. I don't know if I can. As there's been quite a bit over the couple days. Deion Sanders, praying for the family and loved ones of at Larry Allen 73. Larry, may peace locate you all the turbulent time during this turbulent time. Let's remember the best times of Larry. In Jesus' name, amen. A tearful Emmitt Smith shares his thoughts on the passing of former teammate Larry Allen via his Instagram. Brian Balding at Cowboys at 49ers. There will never, ever be another Larry Allen. Lots of us with heavy hearts today, honoring one of the greatest to have ever done it. And with a big smile, R.I.P. LA. Sean Payton, who coached Larry when Larry was in Dallas, talking about Bill Parcells, used to say to him about creating the all-time starting lineup for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that Larry Allen would unanimously be the left guard. It continues on, but continuing on with Peyton, said he was a tremendous player, said if he had made that he would made the starting lineup unanimously at left guard. Dan Campbell, who played with Larry, goes on and says, "What an unbelievable human being! What a unbelievable teammate!" And then his play on the field speaks for itself. McCarthy opened his press conference talking about Larry Allen. Players showed a video of him and saying Zimmer had a lot to say to them about Larry, giving their relationship as well. They were so close. Continuing on with McCarthy, they played a video honoring Larry in the room, and there's so many more. My favorite moment of Larry Allen, it's not actually Larry talking about it. It's Larry going against John Randall, who played for the Vikings, played for the Seahawks. He went and said, in playing for the in playing for those teams, like I would trash talk everyone. I would like, he was a guy who was John Madden was a mental guy. He wanted to be in your head and make you out do things that you didn't normally do. And he said, when I went against Larry, I made sure my chin strap was tight. I didn't talk to him. I didn't say anything. I didn't say a choice word to him. You were nice to Larry. You were nice to Larry. You would smile at Larry. Sometimes he'd smile back, but don't get him mad because he was so strong. He would toss linebackers. This is what John Madden said. He would toss Larry Allen would toss linebackers, not 5 yards, 15 yards. 15, 20 yards. He'd just toss them. You'd be gone. You'd just be out of there. When Larry was asked, because Larry was known as one of the strongest men in the NFL, the 700-pound bench press that he did. He did the Pro Bowl at the Pro Bowl games in 2006, I believe, 2004, 2006, something like that. He's bench 225 pounds, and he went 34 reps. Everyone else couldn't even do 20. He did 34. He probably could have kept going, but he's like, I should probably stop. The best person to describe Larry Allen is Mike Fisher. He told a story about when he was working, did an interview with Larry. Larry grew up had a very tough childhood. Grew up in Compton. But like he said Larry didn't talk much. And I did a report. And I said Larry Allen only uses his mouth for one thing, and that's eating. And Larry asked for him to come over. And he's like, "Oh, boys, I said something wrong. I did something wrong. Hey, Larry's calling me over. This is not good." And Larry laughed at it. He liked it. And in fact, anytime he had to do any interviews, he'd just have Mike Fisher go and do it. That's what he did. He didn't want anyone else. He knew that Mike Fisher would treat him right. He didn't want anything. He just wanted to be left alone and let his play speak for itself. And it did. First ballot Hall of Famer. You don't get that as an offensive lineman very often. Larry Allen was one of the best to ever do it. And we lost a great human being. We didn't just lose a great football player, we lost a great man. It tells you a lot of football becomes secondary to anything that happens in life, and that you should cherish the moments you have on this earth because you don't get them more than once. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hibbert. Out.